Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Vishnupad Manamansi Parivraja Kachaja Satara Sata Shri Śrimad. His Divine Grace of Bhāgavatam Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Jai Nityalila Bhavishtom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraja Kachaja Satara Sata Shri Śrimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Govinda Go Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Braja Bhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Shri Gangamai Ki Shri Tulsi Maharani Ki Bhakti Devi Ki. All glory to some devotees. All glory to some devotees. All glory to some devotees. All glory to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. Namo Shivaya Krishna Stavatoy Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami. Namaste Sat. Here is Shri Prasad says time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Chapter titled, Opening a Temple in Los Angeles. And this version, this volume is called Additional Pastimes. And Dayananda and Nandarani had written to Prabhupada that people in Los Angeles weren't as receptive as in San Francisco and New York. For Prabhupada had assured them that if they chanted with devotion, success would come. Krishna would help them. In his room at the Radha Damodar Temple in Vrindavan, Prabhupada had meditated on sending young men and women like Dayananda and Nandarani all over the world to open Krishna conscious centers. Despite old age and ill health, this was his life's ambition, his single dominating desire. And in whatever time he had left, he wanted to establish the Krishna conscious movement worldwide. His success in America over the past 2 years had given him hope. Mukunda had begun a temple at San Francisco. Kirtananda had begun one in Montreal. Satsrupa in Boston. Subala in Santa Fe, and Brahmananda had stayed in New York. These temples were storefronts only, and the leaders young, inexperienced men. But the Western youth were showing interest. There was great potential. After the kirtan, Dayananda drove Prabhupada to his apartment 2 miles away. It was small, a front room, a kitchenette, a back room with a tiny bathroom, and noisy. Aniruddha had arranged for Gaurasundar and his wife, Govinda Dasi, who were acting as Prabhupada's servant and secretary, to stay in the front room. Prabhupada said his health was still not good. His sleep was often disturbed, and he spoke of a gong, gong, gong sound in his head. He had occasional headaches and a ringing in his left ear. An Ayurvedic doctor in India had told him to take cinnamon buds, and he had seen a doctor in San Francisco, but the doctor's prescriptions had not helped. I may inform you that in that connection, that I am at the present moment physically unfit. I am having always a buzzing sound in my brain. I cannot sleep at night, but still I am working because I try to be on my position of spiritual platform. Prabhupada was in good spirits. However, despite his age and lingering sickness, he appeared strong, and 6 months in India had tanned him a golden, healthy hue. He always sat straight and smiled often. He walked with a cane, yet upright, with a quick step, tiring his young disciples who attempted to keep up with him. He even mentioned that if his inability to sleep continued, he would have more time for writing his books. Gone was the mindlessness of his young followers, who had previously thought that Swamiji, because he was a pure devotee, should be let to do any strenuous activities he liked, working all night or singing and playing the mridanga for hours in the park. Now the devotees have become concerned and protective, trying always to arrange for his ease, suggesting when they thought something was too strenuous for him. Usually, however, Prabhupada would give the last word on what he would or would not do. When Jamuna and Janaki arrived from San Francisco, they decided that if Swamiji were to get well, he would require a special diet. So they devised a regimen featuring small servings of boiled vegetables without salt, spices, or ghee. At first, Prabhupada gently submitted to their requests, but on trying their meals, he commented, "These vast vegetables are nasty. They are not fit for eating." After 3 days, when Govinda Dasi told him of some new reductions in his diet, he roared, "Let the starvation committee go to hell. You feed me." Again, Prabhupada began taking his regular lunch, dal, rice, chapatis, and a couple of sabjis with ghee. One day when Govinda Dasi brought him his lunch, he commented, "Oh, this is very nice. When I was in India, everyone told me, 'Oh, Swamiji, you cannot go to America, you will starve there. They have no food, they eat only meats and potatoes.' So I said, 'What is that? I shall live on bread and potatoes. There is no problem. I can survive on bread and potatoes.' So I was thinking like that when I came to your country, that I shall live on bread and potatoes. But now I have come here and Krishna is so kind. He has not only given me everything in the way of nice food, but you are also cooking all sorts of nice vegetable preparations. Chapatis, dal, rice, everything is there. So this is Krishna's kindness." Although when Srila Prabhupada had first arrived in America, he had been alone and had had difficulty finding even a single sincere person, now he was surrounded by sincere students eager to learn from him. Still, he accepted this new position in the same spirit as he had accepted the lonely months in New York City. He was doing his beloved duty to his spiritual master, writing books, seeking to engage others in the Krishna consciousness mission, and speaking about Krishna always. Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON New York City ki. Following in Prabhupada's footsteps. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from 3rd Canto, 32nd chapter, text 1, chapter entitled Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. Kapila Uvacha. Atayo Grihamediyan. Atayo Grihamediyan. Dharmane Vavasan Grihe. Dharmane Vavasan Grihe. Kama Martang Chadaman Swan. Kamam Artang Chadaman Swan. Dogdibhuya Pipatitan. Dogdibhuya Pipatitan. Please chant. Kapilo Vacha. Atayo Griyamediyan. Dharmane Vavasan Grihe. Karma Atam Chadaman Swan. Dibhuyan Pipatitan.
Kapila Uvacha.
Kapila Uvacha.
Atayo Grihamediyan.
Atayo Grihamediyan.
Dharman eva vasangrihe.
Dharman eva vasangrihe.
Kamam artham cha dharman swan.
Kamam artham cha dharman swan.
Buddhi bhuya pipartitan.
Buddhi bhuya pipartitan.
Kapila Vacha.
Kapila Vacha.
Arthayo Graha Medhiyam
Artayogya Mediyam
Dharmanevavasangrihe
Eva Vasangrihe
Kamam Artham Cha Dharman Swam
Kamamartam Tadaman Swan
Tokvibhuya Pipartitan
Taudibuya Vibhata Swan. Sound check. Ladies.
Dharman.
Duties.
Duties.
Eva.
Eva.
Certainly.
Certainly.
Avasan.
Avsan.
Living.
Living.
Grihe.
Grihe.
At home.
At home.
Kamam.
Namam.
Sense gratification.
Sense gratification.
Artam.
Artham.
Economic development.
Economic development.
Cha.
Cha.
And.
And.
Dharman. Religious rituals.
Religious rituals.
Swan.
Swan.
His.
Is.
Dogdhi.
Dogdhi.
Enjoys.
Enjoy.
Bhuya.
Bhuya.
Again and again.
Again.
Viparti.
Vipatti.
Performs.
Performs.
Tan.
Tan.
Them.
Them.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead said, the person who lives in the center of household life derives material benefits by performing religious rituals, and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification. Again and again, he acts the same way. Please repeat. The personality of Godhead said,
The personality of Godhead said,
the person who lives in the center of household life
the person who lives in the center of household life
derives material benefits by performing religious rituals,
derives material benefits by performing religious rituals,
and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification.
and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification.
Again and again, he acts the same way.
Again and again, he acts the same way.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are two kinds of householders. One is called Grihamedi, and the other is called Grahasta, the Grahasta. The objective of the Grihamedi is sense gratification, and the objective of the Grahasta is self-realization. Here the Lord is speaking about the Grihamedi, or the person who wants to remain in this material world. His activity is to enjoy material benefits by performing religious rituals for economic development and thereby ultimately satisfy the senses. He does not want anything more. Such a person works very hard throughout his life to become very rich and eat very nicely and drink. By giving some charity for pious activity, he can go to a higher planetary atmosphere and the heavenly planet in his next life. But he does not want to stop the repetition of birth and death and finish with the concomitant miserable factors of material existence. Such a person is called a Grihamedi. A Grahasta is a person who lives with family, wife, children, and relatives, but has no attachment for them. He prefers to live in family life rather than as a mendicant or sannyasi, but his chief aim is to achieve self-realization, or to come to the standard of Krishna consciousness. Here, however, Lord Kapiladeva is speaking about the Grihametis, who have made their aim the materialistically prosperous life, which they achieve by sacrificial ceremonies, by charities, and by good work. They are posted in good positions, and since they know that they are using up their assets of pious activities, they again and again perform activities of sense gratification. It is said by Prahlad Maharaj, Punak Punascharvata Charvananam. They prefer to chew the already chewed. Again and again they experience the material pangs, even if they are rich and prosperous, but they do not want to give up this kind of life. Om Jnana Tamrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Amulatamanites Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Manghai Deguram Yakripatamam Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. This interesting situation recently developed that some wealthy benefactors of ISKCON, the so-called richest family in India, has recently been sentenced to jail time. This family for years was enjoying opulence again and again in so many ways. And in the past they also gave charitable donations to the temple. But none of this could save them from the fate that awaited them. So now, even though they have so many riches, still they'll have to go and live in a jail cell for a certain amount of time. So this is karma, we understand. So we have this process by which the Grihameti, he's trapped within these three dharma, artha, kama. When you add moksha, and then you come to the level of grihastha. So this is their missing point. And of course, Prahlad Maharaj elaborates, Matirna Krishna paratak svatova mitobi pradyeti grihavritanam adanta gobhya vishatam tamisham punak punaschavata charana. So this family has had so many instructions. At one time I drove them from one preaching engagement to another, and they had the opportunity to hear so many instructions. But yet still they never thought how I can somehow or other dovetail all of this wealth in Krishna's service. Instead, just giving some small amounts when they could be giving huge amounts without any loss. If someone who has billions of dollars wants to give $1 million or even 100 million, it's nothing. And so it is said that it is not what you give, Krishna sees, it's what you hold back. So this, and there's an interesting story he relates that in Vrindavan, many people, they want to retire there. And so they, like these individuals, they're crorepati. They have amassed so much wealth. They say, now I'm leaving everything to you, my dear wife, my dear children. You simply give me 200 rupees for my maintenance. So he's giving everything to the family. And he's going to Vrindavan to do bhajan. And he's taking 200 rupees just to eat. But he's not giving any of that wealth to Krishna. So Prabhupada said that, okay, Krishna, in Krishna's voice, he said, all right, if you are for me 200 rupees, then I am for you 200 rupees. So this is the purport. Yayatama prapadyante tam shatava bhajamiham. As you surrender unto me, I reward you accordingly. So time after time, these lessons are being presented to us historically. It's like we have the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Śrimad Bhāgavatam is complete in the first canto, technically. For those, everything else is the nectarian pastimes of the various saints and sages in the Supreme Personality to give us the more of the substance to occupy us, because we have this tendency that once giving, just like when you're a hungry man, if you give him a meal, he's satisfied. But he has to again eat the next day. The transcendentalist, though, when he achieves knowledge, real knowledge, this tadara, justamo, bhava, kama, lobha, deshe, he's no longer hankering after anything. His material appetite is satiated. He knows there's nothing left. Somehow or other, through the knowledge here, this chindanti kovidatasya, he's been able to take with the sword of knowledge to cut the knot in the heart. So this is the difference between the Grihastha and the Grihamaiti. The Grihastha knows what is the aim of life. He still has his wife, he still has his children, he still has his activities, but he's detached. He does it as a service to Krishna. And if anything interferes with that, he makes whatever arrangement is required in order to put everything back on track. And ultimately, at the time of 50, then he must take vanaprastha. In the Krishna book, in the one chapter, what is that chapter called? Around Roy? Autumn season. Anyway, Prabhupada goes through a nice description how that the autumn season is like this period of life when one wants to conserve his energy for executing spiritual activities. He withdraws from family life. He's no longer putting his energy into whatever material activities he was using to support the family. And now he's conserving his energy, like we saw Srila Prabhupada did, in order to utilize it in serving Krishna and prosecuting Krishna consciousness. So this is something that everyone has to do. And even now, we see, why do we refrain from frivolous sports? Because it's a useless waste of energy. What is the point? When there are so many other things to do. For the Vaishnava, swimming in the Jamuna is the topmost pleasure. You can swim. Of course, you have to be a little careful. So many devotees have lost their lives trying to swim across the Ganges, thinking to themselves, oh yes, I'm young, I'm fit, I'm going to do that. So many times they lost their lives. Don't be foolish. Don't try to conquer the Ganges due to false ego. Well, the Ganges will take you very quickly. But of course that's also somewhat auspicious. But at the same time, that life was not yours to waste. This life belongs to the spiritual master. So this is what we have to concentrate on. And that once having surrendered to the spiritual master, then I should be using every waking moment to think how I can serve his mission, not my mission, not my sense gratification, not my false ego, not my pseudo-intellectual aspirations. Right? This is a big problem, and even in spiritual circles. People want to develop some reputation as a intellectual within spiritual circles. For what profit? For what purpose? Only for name and fame? So this is not recommended. One should try to utilize whatever he has in spiritual life simply for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the orders of the spiritual master. Because he knows what Krishna wants. One cannot speculate. We know that Prabhupada said that one should try to act in such a way that Krishna sees you. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave that famous instruction to his disciples. But we see that Srila Prabhupada perfectly executed it. Because if that consciousness is there, always, how to act in such a way that the spiritual master is pleased, that Krishna is pleased, then even the Christians have that saying. What is that saying, Bhakti Vasili? What would Jesus do? So we have to think, what would Prabhupada do? It has some benefit. It keeps them in line as well. For those who are serious and sincere. You have so many people professing to be Christians, but they're, condoning the slaughter of animals. They're condoning so many nonsense things, we don't have to speak about. But, they're going on, and as we see, as a result, endless wars. Endless wars. And it doesn't matter whether one is a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, or Jew. All are engaging in activities which simply fill up the barrel of karma until it overflows as pestilence, famine, and war. Prabhupada mentions these things, that they have to be there. Because this material world is such, with the activities being, as everyone can see, that there must be these three things. Pestilence, and what does pestilence mean? Pestilence means some pandemic, some plague. These things you see time and time again throughout history. And then what follows this pestilence? Famine. There'll be gradual diminishing of the food stock. Although everything is available abundantly, if you look around, you'll see that people are being paid to destroy their crops. Why? Same thing in that chapter of Krishna book in the autumn season. Said Krishna is producing so much, but people are being told to withhold it. But that is not theirs to decide. It's meant for the distribution. So in this sense, spiritual communism has a point. That if there's abundance in one area, why is there starvation elsewhere? When the food just needs to be shifted over. If you have unlimited grains in some place, they're simply filling up a warehouse. There was one catastrophic event in, what's that country? Lebanon? They have these warehouses right by the port. And they were filled with grains and other things, fertilizer. And these should not be stored in certain types of environments. And one day, by Krishna's arrangement, a fire began, and from that fire, which they tried to extinguish, there was some combustion. And this combustion leveled an area equivalent to a small atomic weapon. You look at the video on YouTube, you see the blast radius expanding. People who were miles away were knocked down. So these things are there. All those food grains were there, and they weren't being distributed. People were starving in certain places in the Middle East. And as a result, Krishna said, okay, if you're not going to use it, boom. So now we see again the same thing is happening. Food is everywhere being manipulated. And it's described. This is Kali Yuga. There's nothing new. You don't have to read the newspaper to understand this. Everything is in the first canto and the 12th canto. Symptoms of the age of Kali. So we have to be careful how we utilize Krishna consciousness, for the benefit, the welfare of all living entities. It should not be used simply to satisfy our innate desire for peace. Everybody wants shanti. And so there's sometimes someone is coming because they're in a distressed condition. We know that. Chatur vidha bhajanti mam. They're coming out of distress. And then once their distress is relieved, what happens? They go away. Or they come seeking wealth, and they get their wealth and they go away. And then they come seeking knowledge, and they get some knowledge, but they don't understand. And that knowledge is also stolen by illusion. So if one is not coming to Krishna consciousness for the right reason, or he doesn't get the right association to help him to eliminate all these other false reasons, then gradually he won't achieve that peace, that vyavasayamika buddhi ekeha karunan, the focus that will take one through years 1 through 50 in spiritual life. Not just 1 through 5 or 1 through 10 or 1 through 20. This is a lifelong pursuit to once having assimilated this knowledge, that he then uses it for the proper purposes, not for any other reason. And that's also described in that chapter, Divinity and Divine Service. One should not use any spiritual achievement for material benefit. So I encourage everyone that if one wants to get a solid foundation in spiritual life, don't neglect this second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, of the first canon, because it is the foundation. It will keep you on track. Once you have understood this, once you have memorized these shlokas, then there's because this is the sages, who are we? The sages ask 6 questions, and these 6 questions are answered. Now from these 6 questions, technically the whole Bhāgavatam is expanding. But for the devotee, he only needs this one chapter. Everything else is the cream. And it's there for our satisfaction. Krishna is giving it to us. Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa is giving it to us. So we have this ultimate benefit that we don't have to go any place, we don't have to seek out any economic development, sense gratification. Everything is here within the Krishna conscious movement. And if one doesn't get that understanding and appreciation after a certain point, then he will again begin looking elsewhere. And the symptoms are clear. So one should very carefully maintain association with devotees who are similarly convinced about the truth, the absolute truth. Right? This Matirna Krishna Paratak Svatova, the purport of that verse is, not by joint conference can one achieve anything except through the association of devotees. The materialists are having so many. They have probably quoted this Rotary Club, because in India it's very famous, Rotary Club. They do all mundane activities. And it's a business association. For some, they talk to each other, how tips and tricks, so to speak, like that. But there's nothing like the association of devotees. But they're not going to tell you how to become successful in the material world. Well, they are. To become successful in the material world, you simply have to avoid everything that's being described in the Bhāgavatam as punak punak shavata chavananam, chewing the chewed. And then you'll be successful. Even in the material world, you'll be successful. No one is having to. We see that the most famous story is Sudama Vipra. He was nothing. He was a poor Brahmin. Brahmins are by nature poor. Why is that? It's the curse of Bhrigu Muni. It's all Arjuna's fault. Yeah? So Bhrigu Muni wanted to know who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he went to the triumvirate. What is the triumvirate? Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So he went to Lord Brahma first, who's actually his father. And he went and he insulted him. So you can't insult a superior. They become, those who are not equipoised, self-controlled, became extremely angry. He was ready to kill him, even though he's his own son. But Bhrigu Muni ran away. Then he went to Lord Shiva, and he did the same thing. Who's his brother. He insulted his brother, called him all nasty names. And nobody, who would do that in his right mind? Lord Shiva manifests Rudra. The fire of devastation consumed the entire universe in this. And here he is insulting him. So of course, he was ready to kill him in a second, so he had to run away again. And then he came to Lord Vishnu, who was there being massaged by his eternal consort, Sri Devi, Lakshmi. And without saying a word, he walked up to him. Even Lord Vishnu, as he's greeting him, he simply went by him and he kicked Lord Vishnu in his chest. Physically kicked Lord Vishnu in his chest. very bold, wouldn't you say? Huh? And what did Lord Vishnu say? My dear Brahmana, my chest is as hard as a thunderbolt. I hope you didn't hurt your foot. Right? But Lakshmi Devi was about to, dissolve him, disintegrate him. He was about to just disappear from, any dimension. Who knows what happens if Lakshmi decides to do that, the material energy. Where does she put you? The internal energy throws you into the material energy, and you're finished. But she did, because Lord Vishnu forgave him, said, Bhrigu Muni achieved his purpose, but from that point on, Lakshmi Devi cursed the Brahmanas that they will never have any wealth. Never have any wealth. So a Brahman is always kept poor in order to be kept in a humble position, dependent on the Lord. Dependent on the Lord. So if one is thinking, let me accumulate some wealth, let me go get my Social Security, my SSI, my whatever, and then I'll be happy. I'll live in Vrindavan on $200 a month. Then you're just like that Crorepati. What happened to all that years of sacrifice and Sankirtan and everything else, and then dissolved in a second by this desire for oblivion and a so-called aura of spirituality. When at the end of life, one is supposed to become more determined. Prabhupada came to America at the age of 69. He was meditating on it. We saw he was meditating on how this whole thing would happen. So we're not meditating how to spread this movement throughout our life, but especially at the end of life, which is the most crucial time and where technically you have the resources to be of the most benefit to the society. But if instead you retire from the battlefield, and think that, no, I've already done everything I need to do. I don't have to serve anymore. Where did that philosophical conclusion arrive from? How did it come about? So it comes about. This is, again, the same thing, that our intelligence is stolen by illusion. And illusion is not that now I'm 50, there's no more illusion, or now I'm 60, there's no more, or now I'm 70, there's no, illusion is there up to the point of death, unless you have already accepted that vow sincerely and executed it up to that point, like we've seen many of our God brothers, who up to that moment, they fixed themselves. As long as they could physically labor for spiritual, for Prabhupada and Krishna, they did so. And then when they couldn't, they didn't just go away and think, okay, now I have to die, let me, just, what's that story? So, in Vrindavan, there's two roommates, old Indian gentlemen. One was Vibhu Chaitanya. Vibhu Chaitanya is famous in Vrindavan. Prabhupada told him, when the devotees complained, Vibhu Chaitanya is not chanting his rounds. Prabhupada said, no. He's chanting all day long, cooking for Radharani. Leave him alone. Don't bother him. So this is Vibhu Chaitanya. And in old age, when he could no longer stand, and in the heat of the kitchen, because you don't sit down, he would give out Charanamrita. So this was there, from the very beginning up to the very end. Just non-stop, fully absorbed in Krishna's service. Fully absorbed. We don't know, we can say, what is the symptom of one who is in Krishna conscious? One who is always absorbed in service. You could say, there's no aura that emanates and says, oh, this is a great soul. No. One who is constantly devoted and worshiping me with love, I give them the intelligence to come to me. So here, Vibhu Chaitanya, time of death. And then, completely surrounded by the devotees, he left in a glorious way. On the other hand, his roommate, for years, also living and doing service, when he became sick, he called his family, come and take me away. Take me to the hospital, take me to a doctor. And everybody's telling him, what are you doing? You're 80 years old. Well, you're in Vrindavan. You're about to die. What are they going to do for you? These fallible soldiers. What are they going to do for you? But he wouldn't listen to any good counsel. This is the point. They wouldn't listen. And they took him away, and he died in unknown. Nobody knows whatever happened to him. We just know he died. Later on, somebody came, oh yeah, he died. Some unknown hospital in some unknown location. Just see the two things, both in Vrindavan, both doing service, but at the time of death, because one was not in the proper consciousness, he thought, my family can save me. And here we're reading from Kapila Dev that one has to, so this is the benefit of being detached from the family. Whatever he needs to do for the family, he does. But he doesn't surrender his intelligence and go into oblivion at the most important point in his life, in his existence. So we have to be very careful to maintain this association. Vibhu Chaitanya took that association exactly the way we would expect. All good counsel, took care of him, waited on him hand and foot. Because this is what Vaishnavas do. We did the same for our godbrothers when they came to pass away. We didn't say, oh, now you're sick, we're going to send you back to the West. No. When Buddhi Mahaprabhu came, his condition was we could hardly understand how he was even alive. He had brain cancer. They took out half his brain, literally half his brain. You could, from the depression on the side of his head, you could see this. Nothing inside there, technically speaking. But he was completely alert and Krishna conscious. And up until a certain point, he was out in front of the temple every day distributing Prabhupada's books. Because Buddhi Mata is known as the first big book distributor. And so he came to Vrindavan, his good friends paid his way to come, and then we took over from there. And just made sure that he was comfortable. Of course, at the end, it was, you're taking care of someone who has no control of any of their bodily functions. You're waiting on them, and people think, oh, how can I do this? I'm changing adult diapers, and there's no diapers in India. So in one sense, it's a nasty thing, but for the Vaishnava, we can do anything. We don't mind. This is not some ordinary engagement. To help your godbrother who served for 50 years, Prabhupada, with every ounce of his existence. So it's a small thing to take care, but many people can't do it. They run away. I can't do that. Why? Ultimately, it's because they have no faith in the spiritual master and Krishna. They think that this is not service. That serving the Vaishnava is the highest service. So in any case, we should be very careful about how we deal with our accumulated material desires. Because they're not going away simply by some wishful thinking. And we see everyone who's here is sleeping at night and dreaming. And I can only speak for myself. But these dreams are not some continuous chain of Krishna conscious pastimes. They're there. But that's the influence of having performed some small amount of devotional service in the assembly of some very nice devotees. So Krishna's mercy is that, yes, by his mercy you can dream of Prabhupada, you can dream of your Krishna conscious activities, of whatever you did in Krishna service. And the more time you have in Krishna consciousness, the more these will fill your consciousness. So at the time of death, you will not be subjected to this, what people say is the stream of life passing you by. What do they say? My life flashed before my eyes. It's a common saying. Anybody who has read anything about this or studied psychology has heard this. People say, yes, my life flashed before my eyes. And just imagine a big roulette wheel. Right? They used to have a TV show. What was it called? Wheel of Fortune. Right, Ram? Wheel of Fortune. So you spin this wheel and it has dollar amounts, or you get to choose something. So this flashing of the life, what is it? It's yum yum vapi smaram bhavam yajatante kalevram. All of a sudden your life flashes, and all of a sudden there it is. There's that one memory that was not erased, right? You have to, just like you have a hard drive, you want to get rid of all the nonsense. You want to hide it from the FBI. You have to shred it. All right? You have to take, there's certain programs, otherwise you can recover it. This is what happens. So if you didn't delete all these nonsense memories or overwrite them, right? Because that's what a hard drive does. It overwrites. It doesn't erase, it overwrites. So we're overwriting our material memories with Krishna conscious activities. And those become prominent. And so at the time of death, when our life flashes before us, we don't see all this mundane stuff, what I did when I was young, in high school, in college, or whatever. You know, and anyone who's had any near-death experience has some appreciation for the fact that Krishna consciousness works. That you think of Krishna, you call out the holy name, you've been trained by the mercy of the spiritual master. For this one single eventuality, the time of death, there's one single thing. And so that wheel of fortune, we wanted to stop on, Goloka Vrindavan. This is the why we're here, why we associate, why we daily worship the deity. It's all to overwrite these mundane memories. Bishop John Maharaj used to have a unique term. He used to call it impure reminiscence. Impure reminiscence. It happens all of a sudden. All of a sudden this song comes up in your mind. Where did it come from? But the cleansing process, it stirs all this material garbage from the bottom, while you're trying to become cleansed. And this is what's necessary. You're cleaning the dirt of the heart, this Chaita Darpana Marjam. So it's understood that some of these material desires will come forward and you need to deal with them. You need to see them for what they are. And then you can delete them, throw them away. And just like one nice devotee from Sweden, when on the Henry Street Temple, we were just discussing maybe the day's class, maybe Prabhupada's lecture, and he was previously a householder. And so he mentioned that, how he'd withdrawn himself from spiritual life. And there's someone else who was there in the conversation who says, well, you don't feel anything? He says, well, He says, when you pass stool, you flush the toilet. You don't look back and see, well, let me see how that stool looked. Was that a good stool or a bad stool? No, you flush the toilet, it's gone. But some people want to keep chewing the chewed. So we need to learn these little secrets of detachment. Gradual, incremental, and eventual. Because it happens, it will happen to everyone. So don't think, as Prabhupada said, that it won't happen to you. Sometimes it's forced upon you. And sometimes if you have the opportunity to withdraw gracefully, then that is obviously the best solution for everyone involved. And everyone remains favorable. So we don't want to exceed our time. So we'll take just a couple of questions, and we can always, these topics can be discussed. And we do have an Ishtagoshi coming up on, when is that? For Wednesday is the general Ishtagoshi. And then Thursday, Friday. Now Friday for the men's Ishtagoshi. And then they'll also have to have a ladies' Ishtagoshi. And Mother Aditi will arrange to have that amongst the ladies. So there's the general, then there's the men's only, and then there's the ladies only. And so in this way, and of course, there'll probably be a Bhaktivedanta Youth Services, but they should all join together in the general Ishtagoshti. Okay, any questions? Suraj? Saurabh? Good? Saurabh? Yes, bro.
Thank you so much for the class.
told that if you want to be materially successful, you have to do exactly opposite of what is written in Bhāgavatam. So, if you can...
Not exactly. It's described that if you, for the Dharma, Artha, Kama, these things are done. These are religious rituals. But nobody's doing those things. Nobody's performing sacrifice. So how can you expect? So basically everything is just according to your past pious or impious activities. Happiness and distress come of their own accord. So one doesn't have to seek distress. Distress comes automatically. So why does one have to seek happiness? The bum on the street who finds a lottery ticket and becomes a multi-millionaire, what did he do for that? Nothing in this lifetime. So why is one worried? Prabhupada said, I mean, it's also there in other religious scripture, that the elephant is not worried about his source of food. Krishna is daily giving him 40 kgs. And the birds are also getting whatever they need. So why are we worried? So we worry because we lack faith in Krishna. Huh? And besides, if you're a Brahmin, then you're destined not to get any wealth. And if you get it, yajan, yajan, patan, patan, dan, pitiga, you have to give it away. Brahmin doesn't hold his wealth. He has to use it in Krishna's service, hopefully. Okay, so don't worry. You will get everything according to Krishna's plan. So, an intelligent man would think that, well, yes, then obviously this is the best situation, because I'm not performing if I'm following all the rules and regulations. I'm not committing any sinful activity. I'm burning up all my past impious activity. So even if I'm mercantile, which Prahlad Maharaj didn't want, he said, I'm not a Baniya. When Lord Nrsimhadev wanted to offer him the riches greater than his father who had conquered the King of Heaven, he said, I'm not worshiping you for some material benefit. And that's the first place I saw philosophically the term Banik. You know, we hear it all the time in Vrindavan, Baniya. You know, but there it's clear. This is not a material, mercantile relationship. Krishna is giving, and of course he rewarded Prahlad Maharaj. He didn't have to ask for it. He rewarded Dhruva Maharaj, even though he was asking her, but when Vishnu appeared before him, he said, no, I realized my mistake. I was asking for broken pieces of glass. You know, and now I have you in my heart. So what else does one need? If you can feel the presence of the Supreme Lord everywhere, what dissatisfaction could overwhelm that? So internally, the devotee is joyful. Why? Because he realizes the Supreme Lord moment to moment in his activities. He knows, I'm doing this. I have faith that Krishna is seeing what I'm doing. I don't need to get some secondary confirmation. I need to go and ask anybody, is this okay? No. If one is secure in his service, this is the highest achievement one can have in spiritual life. What exceeds that? To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the intelligence by which they come to me. And this intelligence means everything is there within that intelligence. Your intelligence is whatever aspects that you're engaged in. If you're in the Grihastha ashram, then Krishna will give you the intelligence, how to do everything correctly in the Grihastha ashram. If you're in the sannyas ashram, Krishna will give you everything necessary for the success in that ashram. So don't be bewildered by thinking that Krishna is not going. Whatever you want, he will give you to be success. And ultimately the success in any ashram is to go back home, back to Godhead. It doesn't matter one is a Grihastha, Vanaprastha, a Vaishnava. So we have this, so he was first, and then, but we can't go beyond this time. So, of course, Matanga, I am associating with him all day now, so I can answer his question later. So you?
In the purpose, Sri Prabhupada is saying, a Grihastha is a person who lives with family, wife, children, relatives, but has no attachment for them. So my question was, then why does he live with the family if he has no attachment?
Because he has duty to perform. Every ashram has duty. You make a commitment, before the fire, before the devotees, before Vishnu, that you'll take charge, and of course what happens, striya means expansion. So you take charge of the wife, but from the wife coming the children, and from the children the house. So all these things, you have to be willing to take that responsibility. If you're not willing, don't do it. If someone is not willing to take any responsibility, better you remain a brahmachari and live a happy-go-lucky life, chanting the holy names peacefully, without any trouble. But, do we question Bhaktivinoda Thakur's motive? Or any of the other acharyas or examples in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? The bulk of Sri Chaitanya's followers were grihastas. He could have said, don't follow me, go find another guru, go follow somebody else, but they realized he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So of course they're going to follow him. So in this situation, Prabhupada said, almost everyone will get married. So how can we not, somehow or other, discuss amongst ourselves at least, how to do certain things with the mind of the best possible outcome? To remain peaceful in Krishna's service. This is what Grihastha life, he told us. Don't become a Grihastha unless you can increase your service. So, that's the kind. So anyone wants to become a Grihastha, just remember, you have to increase your service, because that will keep you fixed. And that detachment that's there, it's not detachment from your duties, it's detachment from the material sense gratification aspect of household life. That you're not attached to whatever you might think is the opulence associated with that ashram. You may have a very beautiful wife, but you're not there to exploit your wife for sense gratification. You may have very beautiful children, very obedient, but you're not there to have them simply become your servants. And we do see this. We see that people having children just so that they can expand their material businesses. What do they say? It says, Agrawal and Sons. Patel and Sons. Patel brothers and sons, and sons, and sons. So this is what people are having children for in the material situation. But this is not. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had children, and with the hope that they would all become pure devotees. And many of them did. So we should all have that, we should all act in such a way that with the highest motive in any of our activities, in any ashram. And you won't become entangled if you're serving the Supreme Lord with the right mentality. It won't. Krishna won't allow it. He'll save you. He'll give you the intelligence by which you come to him. He'll give it to you. But then you have to keep it by following all the little rules and regulations. You have to keep it. Okay, so we're going to end because class, we can't run over time. Sunday's a busy day. Grantharaj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON New York City ki, Shri Radha Govinda Dev, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki, Shri Gaura Nitai ki. Just see how the temple is expanding. Hari Bol.